Welcome to the weekly recap. Lots of quick topics again this week.
Yeah, a few small ones.
Betas, Gamescom, a little bit about VR.
Uh-huh.
And then our big story this week is a New York Post article circulating on social media about the detriment gamers are to society, I guess you could say. So a little bit of discussion for that.
Pretty inflammatory post.
So that'll be our big one. So Xbox announced Gamescom, official.
Yes,
Gamescom. Yeah. August 23rd to 26th.
23rd. I thought it was 22nd to 26th. Tuesday,
Officially
22nd.
starting on the 23rd.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe a fan fest or something on the 22nd.
Yeah, well, that's great because now we're starting to lead up to more of an exciting time. Again. Once Gamescom gets here, it pretty much stays great for the rest of the year. You have the slow periods right after E3, and then there's a slow period right at the beginning of the year for usually a month or so. So we're going to have a little bit more coverage, probably do more videos as we go into that, and then hopefully there'll be enough news and information to do videos every day of Gamescom.
During Gamescom.
Kind of like what we did with E3. So that's great. That's awesome that we already know about some of that. Plus, with Gamescom, I feel like it's a little bit more of a surefire thing when you hear some of the rumors. Mm-hmm. Whereas with leading up to E3, a lot of the rumors are just craziness. You hear all these things about AAAs that are going to be the biggest thing you've ever seen, and then that kind of doesn't happen a lot of the time with E3. But with Gamescom, you hear some of that stuff, and then it's true, and everyone's blown away. So super excited to be heading into that, definitely.
Yeah, finally some real news, because it's been pretty boring since E3, since all the news comes out for E3, at E3. Mm-hmm. So one of the interesting topics this week is betas. Mm-hmm. You could simply put it as betas.
Yeah.
So the Lawbreakers beta, which was a week or so ago, 8-day beta, didn't do so well.
Yeah, I saw some people kind of making fun of some of the numbers that were out there.
Yeah, so I personally didn't really know how many gamers are typically in a particular game in a given hour, but apparently that's a thing.
Well, it ranges all over the place.
So it ranges all over the place. So to compare to others in its class, Lawbreakers beta maxed out during its beta at 7,500 players in an hour. So 7,500 players in 1 hour.
That's pretty low. Yeah.
So that is low. Even I could tell that was low, not knowing what those numbers are. It was compared a lot to Paladins, which in its beta as well peaked at 38,000 people on the servers at one given hour. In one given hour. And then currently Paladins, which has been out for a while now, is averaging still 25,000 per hour.
Yeah.
So that's definitely lower performance than I think.
Quite a bit lower, and Paladins is lower than Overwatch.
Oh yeah, so tremendously lower.
Personally, out of the three, I like Paladins the most. I think it's the best game out of the three. But you're seeing kind of a downtrend there as we continue to get these types of games. Mm-hmm. So the market might be already oversaturated, as it are. People have already chosen the kind of game that they're gonna stick with, and very clearly, we've seen in interviews that they're targeting Overwatch and those types of games with this Lawbreakers title that's coming out. So this looks like it's probably not good news.
Not good news.
Some of those numbers are comparable to like what Battleborn did, right?
Battleborn, yeah. So pretty consistent with what the Battleborn beta did, and it really didn't do
Which is actually a fun game, but it's a flop. It's considered a flop in the industry.
So
I don't see Lawbreakers doing so well. It kind of ties into another thing that we're seeing on a weekly basis now. We're hearing stuff from the team that worked on Lawbreakers on a weekly basis, and we're also hearing interesting information from Bungie and the Destiny 2 thing, also on a pretty consistent basis for both games. And I think some of what we're starting to see is people are basically saying they're going to vote with their wallet and not purchase these two games because of some of the negativity surrounding both Bungie, post Microsoft. Even I remember back when Bungie was still with Microsoft and working on like Halo 3 and reading interviews in magazines, actual print magazines, where they were saying negative things or things that could be taken as negative towards Microsoft. And I even remember seeing things come out and hearing about stuff from the industry. I was kind of closely involved with some people in the industry back then.
Yeah.
And they were basically saying they hated Microsoft, and they hated them because they felt like they were like slave drivers and cracking the whip on them.
Wow.
And they wanted to work with Sony instead.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see gamers are now aware of those types of sentiments, and they're aware of certain things that are out there, and they've heard that there's not going to be an upgraded version for the X coming out, but they're doing an upgraded version for other platforms.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are going to ignore it. We had with Destiny 1, I think it was up to like 17 million players at one point in time, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see those numbers out of Destiny 2. I don't think you're going to see anywhere close to double digits and millions for Lawbreakers on any of the platforms.
Definitely not for Lawbreakers. And even Destiny 2, you know, it's interesting because both Bungie and Cliff Bleszinski have essentially gone off and, I guess, bitten the hand that feeds them because they really got their start through Xbox, and Xbox is so huge that they were given, you know, a lot of resources to design games for them. And then, you know, they've moved on, but then they've both turned around and said a lot of really bad things about Microsoft, which is just interesting because they gave them such a start.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing that Destiny 2 has that they're up against is there's a lot of people who bought Destiny who didn't like it or didn't continue to play it. So they're working, you know, anytime they make a sequel to a game, it's because they think that they have enough sales, right? So there's a lot of games we didn't get a sequel for because they just didn't hit the number. So Destiny may have hit the number on number 1, Destiny 1, but you know, how many of those people are loyal and continuing players?
Yeah, not very many.
And then of those, you have a really crazy issue because they are so obsessed with Destiny. I mean, you're either Destiny or you aren't. And if you're that obsessed with Destiny, if Destiny 2 is not like Destiny 1, they're not going to continue.
What you're talking about is like the inability to transfer over everything you purchased and everything you gained in Destiny 1 to Destiny 2.
No, wait, you can't move your...
From what I understand, you're not able to take all that stuff with you to Destiny 2. It's like a brand new game. Even though it looks the same, it's essentially not. So, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've seen several people already say.
Wow,
so.
That's in the Destiny world, that's crazy. Because these people have
thousands
of hours into designing the things that they have. Yeah. What I was just referring to is, you know, anytime that a sequel to a game comes out, and this seems a little rushed, and from things I've heard, it seems a little lazy. So that's where I was coming from, is thinking it may not be of quite the caliber that they put into the first Destiny.
To me, it looks like the exact same game. I don't see any difference at all.
Either similar or even maybe in some areas a little bit lower quality, because a lot of the approaches were like, you know, it was almost more of a money grab. That's only my personal opinion. But, you know, they put so much work into Destiny because it's such a, you know, it's a new game. It's such a new game that they had to impress people. And now they're like, oh, we've got such a loyal following. You know, we can just do whatever. Just put out a Destiny 2 and it'll succeed. And I think, especially if the profile thing is true, but either way, I think that's really risky business there.
It definitely is. And I think there's a lot of great experiences coming out we've already seen, even just from E3 alone. Just take that one show, that 1 week. A lot of great things are coming out that you probably want to put, or at least me, I'd put my money towards some of those things versus these two games that...
And time, because Destiny is so much time.
Oh yeah, I don't have time for that. Thousands of hours.
Very interesting to see. The only other new thing I've heard on games is not too exciting, which is Gran Turismo is coming to VR.
I saw that.
And what's more interesting than that is really the whole thought process of VR and where we are in VR right now. So Oculus this week permanently priced themselves down to where PlayStation VR is.
Which also took a price drop.
You're going to say the same thing as me. Mind you is down, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a permanent price drop for PlayStation. I think it's a sale. There's a bunch of weird sales. I saw a SKU. I want to say I saw a $300 SKU, but I definitely saw a $400 SKU out there.
Wow.
At, I believe it was Best Buy, and it might have been the $300 one. So that's, in some cases, that's almost half price sell wise.
And that's got to be no profit.
Yeah, there's no way they're making money off of that. No way. Dropping the price like that. To get people to buy it, to get word of mouth going.
Yeah.
Because that's really what sells these types of items.
Yeah.
It's with VR, I mean, I just feel like, I know a lot of people say this kind of thing, but I just feel like it's such an old technology. Like, some of that technology is literally from the 80s.
Yeah.
And I know everyone's going to think that's an exaggeration, but, you know, you can research it. A lot of it is from the 80s, and a lot of it is from the 90s. And I had a Virtual Boy in the 90s, and I remember it being expensive. And I only played it 3 or 4 times tops, and I still have it. It's in a box somewhere.
Still not being played.
Still not being played. And some people really like it. I've heard some stories of people playing it weekly, but not too much of that. A lot of experiencing some things a few times and then putting it away. So
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to really take off, even if they're dropping the price that much.
Well, and they've put so much attention and time and money into VR. In the last 2 E3s. It's like VR, VR, VR. There's VR in the corner of each thing that they're showing, particularly at certain shows. And the adoption's never been great on VR. And it's, I believe it's technology from the 80s because it's a giant headset with like a cord coming off of it, like that thing in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy huge thing that's got to cover your whole face, and then you got to clear your whole room so you don't hurt somebody while you're playing.
You need at least an 8x8 square,
that's crazy.
A perfect block of nothing in there, in order to be able to use it. And that's on the conservative side. You really need more than that.
Well, then you got, like you can just watch the old episodes of Star Trek, and they're like, teleporting people to just appear in front of you. Like that's what VR.
That's what we
in
want
this time period
definitely
would be. Is you can wear nothing and not have a giant clunky thing and not risk injuring a pet while you're playing something and see it in front of you. It's like it's so old.
That has been patented. What was it called? The holodeck has been patented. So somebody is working on that. It's that's crazy. That's 10, 20 years down the line though. So yeah. I don't see us doing that anytime soon. But what they need to at least do right now is come out with something that can be as simple as glasses. Something very small, something very simple, something wireless. You can't have all the wires.
Can't have the giant cords.
Yeah,
that's so crazy.
It's not going to work under the current model. As much as they push it, as much as they want it to work.
Yeah.
You can sell a few units. You can sell maybe 10 million. That doesn't make it a success. The Kinect sold 10 million right out of the gate. Yeah. And I consider the Kinect to be a major success for Microsoft. But most people consider it not to be for whatever reasons. And it sold tens of millions and continued to and still sells to this day. So
that's crazy.
You got to factor that in.
That's so crazy. I can't believe that they keep putting so much into VR, because I think it's clear that the adoption isn't great, and if the adoption wasn't great initially on something like that, it's going to keep getting worse over time, because then you're going to have people telling their friends, yeah, I got that and it was cheap, but then I never use it, and then it's just going to keep going downhill. So it's really interesting that they keep pushing that agenda. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years with VR, and maybe we'll get some real VR, in which case those crazy astronaut helmet things that they got going on are going to be gone. So the hot topic this week is kind of an unfortunate one, really, but I have to comment on it because so a New York Post article kind of circulated social media for a week or so, and it was about I may be misquoting the title slightly, but we're losing an entire generation of young men to video games, essentially.
Yeah.
Men only, and. So the person reading it, and I have to mention, I literally thought I was reading something from The Onion for a second, because the statements were so crazy overblown that it was laughable. It was like, wow, this person has it in for people who play video games and just has an absolute passion behind this. And this is New York Post, so I'm not saying it's a really official source, but it's not somebody's blog.
It sounds like it was another one of those attacks on gamers that we see every 2 to 3 years.
The political attack that goes on gamers. And it's, there's been a lot of different attacks, but this one was arguably one of the ones with the absolute least traction behind it. So he essentially starts out and says that he played Civilization like a really long time ago, 10 years ago, and found himself hooked on it, and all of a sudden it'd be 7 a.m. and I've been playing this game all night.
He played one game ever once.
One game once ever. And then he realizes that, and I believe I'm quoting here, master of a fake world, to become the master of a fake world is a waste of time. So he has this realization. Yeah. He tosses the stupid thing in the closet, never to be seen again.
So he locked it away in the closet right next to Tom Cruise.
Yeah, exactly.
And didn't get rid of it.
He left it in the closet.
Still there.
To accompany Tom Cruise, I guess. And so now this person is writing these articles, and says a huge number...
A decade later.
A decade later, because why not?
He had to think about it,
I wonder if that thing is still in his closet. It's very, very interesting. He's probably actually secretly playing the game, and that's where his motivations are coming from. So he says a huge number of young men are being caught in the throes of video games, and it's That's a direct quote. Now I'm paraphrasing, but it's worse now. He says it's worse now than it ever was before.
Because 12% less work has been done since 2015 or something.
So he made several crazy comparisons. First, he said that men worked 12% less hours in 2015 versus 2000.
Yeah, that's
which
ridiculous.
Is the most random statistic.
Well, that could be explained through so many
There's
different
so many
things.
Things that cause something like
that alone, if you just look at the fact that women are taking a lot of jobs that used to be men-only jobs,
true.
That right there could explain it. It should be even more than 12%. If what he's saying is true, it should be 40, 50%.
Right. Well, and it's like, and he's literally saying hours, which I guess probably means there wasn't a better statistic than, they're working less hours.
That's all he could find.
So there's not less jobs filled or anything like that. It's just less percentage of hours. He also said that it's worse now than it used to be because a lot of the games are more advanced and there's a social aspect of gaming now. So you're playing online with other people a lot. Wasn't one of the biggest criticisms about gaming always that you would be antisocial if you're gaming? So now it's worse, literally worse, because we can play with people online.
Yeah. So they lost that narrative, so now they're trying to paint it as a negative thing that you have friends online.
So he obviously had like a 5-minute deadline on this because he didn't even come up with anything good. It was really, really bad. And then he says, and this is a direct quote, this is probably one of the most dramatic lines in the whole thing, these men are dropping out of the workforce to become PlayStation's willing slaves. Willing slaves. Only PlayStation, only men.
They're dropping out of the workforce, somehow just coming up with the money out of thin air.
Just living in their parents' basement. He literally quotes living in their parents' basement, which might be where civilization is locked up in the closet. I'm not sure. And says that essentially, he says, well, if you ask them if they're happy, ask a gamer if they're happy, they'll tell you yes. Well, so will a heroin addict.
That's pretty ridiculous.
And then proceeds to say it does not matter if you're happy. It's not okay to be a gamer because it's become a substitute for living. Gaming is a substitute for living.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think we should look at the other side of that. So, if you're not playing a game, what are you going to be doing? So, these people aren't going to work 95 hours a week because they don't game.
Yeah.
Which seems to be what he thinks is going to happen, is they're going to go contribute more to society by just working all the time. I don't know. Honestly, they're going to be watching TV, right?
Yeah, most likely.
I mean, those are the two current
TV, movies,
leisure activities. TV, movies. It's something else that's not physically active, that's not financially active. I mean, people have hobbies and they have leisure time, but this is the one hobby that's not contributing to society.
Yeah, all my friends on social media that and non-social media people that you talk to in everyday life that don't game, all of the ones that are non-gamers. All they do is talk about TV. That's
TV
it.
all the time.
That's literally all they're doing. So that's the alternative to what he's describing as a disease or a problem.
Yeah. And so when he says becoming the master of a fake world, right? So as a gamer, you're becoming the master of a fake world. So you're learning to do things, you're solving puzzles, you're having to strategize so you can get through a certain part. You're engaging with people, you're coming up with a strategy with other people. So these are all skills. These are brain development skills, they're coordination development skills.
Yeah.
It is much harder to sit on your couch and play a game than it is to sit on your couch and watch something.
Oh,
so he's essentially saying that watching someone else's fake world that they created for you with their own opinions and their own perspectives, which is what I would consider TV to be, is better than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just another attack piece on gamers. They've slowed down a little bit. It used to be used to be pretty bad. The whole Gamergate thing kind of blew up in all of their faces, and ever since then, everyone's wanted to stay away from it. So I don't imagine this getting too much traction.
No.
From anywhere really. So. Well,
the good news about this article was it was really, really badly done. I mean, if you're gonna try to push an agenda like that, you should definitely come up with some good facts and good statistics, not make really dramatic statements like that are clearly just satirical. So that's really
highlighting the 12%.
Yeah, and then there's the really hilarious thing of it's only young men. So
what happened to the female gamers? Because we've heard some statistics, like I don't know what Steam and PlayStation and Nintendo, what their percentages are, but we've heard statistics like 48% of all the gamers on Xbox and Xbox Live are female. So what happened to them? Why aren't we including them in this in this thing that he's got here?
So I feel like there's two sides to that. There's two possibilities. So there's women don't play games, which again would go along with the, did you look up any statistics for this before you began? Or there's the sort of really old-fashioned and outdated approach, which is men are the ones who are working. Women don't work, so it doesn't matter if they're gaming, both of which are just horrendous.
Pretty ridiculous,
at best. Is that it? Did we miss anything?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this. We have the shout out.
We do have a shout out. So shout out to Gordon Jenkins, who's one of our most awesome supporters. Definitely. Gave us an awesome idea for a video that will be coming soon, maybe next week. Just depends on what the news looks like. Always depends on the news. Yeah,
the top 10 most anticipated games. And I believe specifically he was talking about from E3.
From E3, yeah.
And we were talking about top 5s at this point in time.
Yeah.
But we're going to make it a top 10 and try to include not just E3 games, but other games that we know are coming out. Some of the rumored ones that we have a little bit of confirmation that we can talk about here coming up, especially as we get closer to Gamescom. So either that'll be next week or, depending on what we learn in the next week, we might push it closer to Gamescom to make it a little bit more exciting. So there are definitely more than 10 coming out that I have.
So we went from top 5 to top 10 because top 5 wasn't even doable. It was so hard to do it on our our favorite games this gen. It was really hard to do 5. Most anticipated, we're like, you know what, we're doing 10.
Yeah.
So we'll at least do 10.
Definitely.
Of our most anticipated games, which will be really fun. And sometime soon. So shout out to Gordon. Thank you, Gordon. We will be doing, hopefully, daily coverage for Gamescom.
Yeah, should be.
As long as there's lots of news flowing, we'll be here. We'll be covering it. So excited for that. That'll be really fun.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, right?
That's pretty much it.
Anything. So if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.